I'll start off by telling you a little bit about my story. I grew up in Garland, Texas. I grew up, as you can tell, I'm different than my dad. I'm not a corporate guy. I just wasn't fit for that. At one time, I hoped I was. When I got out of college, if you could get a job with Fidelity Investments, you got you a good job. A lot of my buddies went to work for companies like EDS and IBM and Arthur Andersen. That wasn't for me. And so for a few years after I got out of college, I bounced around at different jobs, sales jobs typically, and never really found anything that was my niche, that was something that I really enjoyed. Well, I had 3 or 4 different jobs, never really clicked. And I answered an ad in the paper, and I went to work for GE Capital. GE Capital is the largest owner of fleets, semi-trucks, semi-trailers, trains, boxcars, airplane financing. And they had a trailer company called TIP, Transport International Pool, that had a leasing and sales business where they sold semi-trailers and they leased semi-trailers. You see these trailers all over the country that say Extra and TIP on them. So I got a job. I think the only reason they gave me the job was because I was the only guy who had a college degree and showed up in a suit. They hired me as an assistant branch manager. And when I got the job, I said, I don't want to sell. I'd had a couple of sales jobs. I was burned out. I said, I don't want to sell. I don't want to sell anything. They said, well, we may need you to sell something. I said, no, I'm not going to sell anything. Well, I'd been there about 3 days, and some Spanish guys came in, and I sold them 10 trailers. The next week, 4 more came in, and I sold them 12 more. Before I knew it, I had figured out, and I had discovered that there was a demand. There was a market here for trailers. People wanted them. They wanted them so bad, they would come pay for them. You didn't have to talk them. It wasn't like uniforms where you had to go talk them in to canceling their contract and go in with your company. These people wanted the equipment. I can remember early in my career going into a cell phone store. I can remember the cell phone store. When I went in the door, there was 35 customers waiting to buy a cell phone. And I said, this is something I've got to get into. I've got to find a market where people want what I'm selling. Not where I got to talk them into it, but where there's demand, and basically all we got to do is take care of the customer. So I went to work for GE Capital. After an 8-month stint with GE Capital, I could see that there was a market. There was a market for storage trailers. In Dallas, all the time, people would call TIP and they'd say, we want a storage trailer. And GE Capital, TIP would say, we don't do storage trailers. If you want a trailer, it's $250 a month. You can use it for storage if you want to. But I could see a market. I could see that there was demand there and no one was taking care of that market. I met a man who had a trailer business in Denver, Colorado, and he and I started Advanced Trailer in 1995. The specific purpose was to buy and sell semi-trailers and to rent storage equipment to Walmart, to Target, and all these other companies. So that was my niche. That's what I started with. I would buy trailers in Chicago. I would bring them to Dallas. I would prep them and put them out on rent to Walmart, all these different vendors and companies. But I figured something out. Very early on, I painted a trailer. I put a brand new paint coat on it. It cost $275 to paint a semi-trailer in Dallas, Texas in 1995. Well, I figured out if I put a coat of paint on them and put my name on them, they'd stay rented all the time. Within a very short amount of time, I had over 200 trailers on rent. In 1998, 1999, and 2000, Advanced Trailer ran at 140% utilization. We had 100% of our trailers on rent 140% of the time. We were getting them back in week 3, and we were putting them back on rent in week 4 for another full term. So it was really a phenomenal time in the trailer industry. But what I learned was I learned that there were niche markets. There was a demand. People wanted storage trailers. Another thing that just kind of fell in our lap that we had nothing to do with was there were other storage companies around the Southwest that wanted trailers to put into their rental fleets. Well, there wasn't anybody in the storage trailer business that would sell to their competition. So early on, I figured out I can rent them for $145 a month, or I can sell them and make $800 up front. People would say, but I'm your competitor. Why are you selling to me? It's profit. It's not that hard. I didn't get a master's degree from ACU. So we started selling, and that was our niche market. So trailer dealers across the country would come to us and buy storage equipment from us. One thing that I figured out was the ability to work with your vendors. When I was partners with my partner in Denver was a big player, had over 2,000 trailers on lease in Denver. He made a lot of money, was very successful, a Christian man. But he had one fault that I could see, and that one fault was he didn't pay his vendors like he should have. He would string them out 30 days or 60 days or 90 days like GE would do. And I learned very early in my career, if you pay your vendor, when your vendor wants to be paid, your vendor will do whatever you need to have done. If I had a Walmart store that had a request for 45-foot trailers with roll-up doors, the kind of doors that roll up instead of swing out, and I didn't have them in stock, sometimes it was a lucrative enough contract that we would go have brand new roll-up doors put in them. Well, if they needed them by Friday and I didn't pay my bills on time, that vendor would not do that work for me. But I early on learned if you pay your vendor and you pay them promptly, your vendor will jump through hoops to do whatever you need done.